All right, cheers and salutations. Welcome to Americans Learn. My name is Kit. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and hit that ring bell notification, you lovely, beautiful people. That way you're made aware when we upload new content, you guessed it, upon our YouTube channel. And today, we have ourselves a fun video to check out. It is titled, Nets, Not Such a Great Idea in Battle. Okay, let's go ahead and find. I mean, hey, listen, you play, fantasy games where you shoot out net trap siege weapons and they trap the enemy. But look, I could see how a net's not a good idea. Now, this is from Lindy Lindy Beige, LINDYBEIGE. So, look, let's first time checking this channel out. And we know here at Americans Learn, we get our learn on, but you know it's pretty cool, you hip cool cats? If you support the original content creator. That link is in the description box below. So let's go ahead and check this video out in a 3, 2, and an uno. Let's do this.
Some people say to me, "Oi, you! Get out of my garden!" But other people say to me, "Lloyd, why didn't they use
Get out of my garden too.
such and such a thing in battle? Or why wasn't this weapon more popular? I've given this some thought. I think they should have been using these." And one thing that comes up is nets. I was asked about it again recently, and so I'm going to talk about why they didn't use nets in battle. Now, of course, nets did exist. You're probably familiar with the retiarius, the fisherman gladiator. And yes, these existed. They were considered quite a low status.
And seriously, they had hooks in there, so if the person got caught, like the hook on them, and then they couldn't get out of the net. No.
Gladiator. They weren't expected to win all that many fights, but it was entertaining to watch them try. And let's not forget, everyone, that wasn't a death sentence, because most gladiators were volunteers, and most of them, in most fights, did not die. Gladiators were very expensive to train, and you didn't want your stable of gladiators dying all the flipping time. That would be really expensive. So
Yeah, that would be. And so probably like the reason why like some people who were like, killed in the gladiatorial arenas, like, because, gladiators were viewed like, WWE stars or MMA fighters or, box. Can't kill them all. You got to bring the people in. But those that did die were probably prisoners or people captured in war. And let's just say they didn't meet the pretty end.
So most of the time they didn't die. Anyway, a bit of a side point that. So the retiarius, yes, he did have a net, but he was on the sand. The Roman word for sand is arena. And so you could say he was on the arena rather than in the arena, but because of the meaning in modern English, I suppose both are acceptable. Anyway, he was on the sand, dueling, usually, with his net in one hand and his trident in the other. Or possibly trident in that hand and net in that side. It's up to him which way round he does it. Now, you may think that a net can be made.
I like how Jorah Mormont is like right behind him. I just noticed that right there. Sorry, my phone is actually buzzing now too, so I'll mute that. Sorry.
Quite effective because it can be weighted, it can be quite large, and you can put hooks on it and so forth. So in a battle, could you imagine loads and loads of people casting nets onto the front ranks of the enemy, and they'd have these nets flying over them, they come over their spears and shields, and there'll be hooks digging into their flesh, and they'll be going, "Oh, ouch! Oh, really, ouch!" And as they try to get out, they'll be struggling, and then the enemy will be on them, and there'll be chaos and mutilation and death and so forth, and ultimate shame and defeat. So why didn't people do this? Why didn't they cast nets over their enemies in battle? Well, let's think about this a little bit more. So imagine you've got an infantry formation there. They've got the standard weapons, which is spear and shield. Okay,
Right.
So you've got a net. Well, a small net isn't going to do it, is it? If you have a net that sort of big enough for a small fish or whatever, you can't go, "Ha ha!" That's just going to hit the front of his shield, drop on the ground, and embarrass everyone. So you need a big net. It's got to engulf a man, his 8-foot spear, shield, and maybe if they're standing quite close together, maybe you've got to get around the two guys next to him as well. And it's really got to get right over them, and the weights have got to fly out. This net has got to be cast broadly like that, and it's got to be open in the air. So you need to really swing it around this big net and cast it.
Yeah, but you can't do that in formation.
Aren't you? So you're going to need a lot of room around you to do that. You can't just go, "Ha ha!" like that. That's not going to work. You're going to have to swing it round and cast this net. But you can't do it from very far. The range of such a large net, you won't be able to throw it more than a few yards. So you're going to be well within javelin range, aren't you? And you can't wield a large shield or anything whilst you're doing this. It's a big net, and you can't be in a dense formation because you need loads of room around you to swing this net. And so if you have a load of net casters, they're going to be spaced really quite far apart, and they're going to be hugely outnumbered by the guys in front of them. So you cast your net, and as you're swinging it around and casting it, or even advancing to get into position to do so, they could just throw a javelin at you, and then you'd be in trouble, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Or even a guy might just run forward out of line and lunge with a really long spear and get you before you could cast the net, and that would be embarrassing too, wouldn't it? But let's imagine that doesn't happen, and you do actually manage to cast the net. Well, think, if he's got a spear, he could just swat the net out of the air, and he's got
Yeah. And he's got friends to help him do that too.
other guys next to him who are likely to be doing the same thing. In fact, as you cast the net, because you're so spaced out and the enemy's in a dense formation, there might be 5 guys all in a position to just knock that net out of the air with a spear. Oh dear. But wait a minute, let's imagine for some reason they don't manage that. They all try and fail, and the net does go over them and does engulf them, and they're all going, oh, I've got a net, oh, by crikey, how do I get out of this? Well, almost no ancient formation was 1 rank deep. It's going to be at least 4 ranks, quite often 8 ranks deep. And so whilst the front rank is just struggle, all they actually have to do is just kneel down,
Yeah.
and let the guys behind them replace them, and whilst they're sorting themselves out behind, you've now got a new front line, which is now in a position to charge a load of unarmed guys with no shields and no nets. And what are you going to do? I strongly recommend running away, by the way, at that point.
Yeah, I'd run away too. It's stupid. A net gun is fun, but throwing a net's not so much fun.
So as soon as you've cast the net, what you've got to do is then capitalise. You've got to, whilst they're still struggling, you've got to charge in immediately, but with what? There are only a few of you and you're quite widely spaced. Yes, you could be thrown out in front of another unit, but that's got to be a little bit behind, and there's going to be a delay. And are you really going to want to be one of those net casters? Because what do you think your chances of survival are as a net caster? I mean, personally, I'd like to have a big shield and a spear and lots of guys next to me. I'd feel much, much safer, thanks. So by using infantry against other infantry like that is possibly just not the most effective weapon. And by and large, you want to give people the most effective weapons. But you could use them for capturing people. Surely, what if you had horsemen with nets? You could gallop after people, and you could cast a net over one of them as he's running away, and it would tangle him up and capture him. And captives are good, right? Yeah, but is that what your officer wants you to be doing? You see, if you've got a spear, you can go gallop, 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 stab, gallop, 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 stab, gallop.
I like that. I'm liking the way this guy's narrating things. I'm liking this channel.
Gallop, 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 stab, and keep going. And you're going to down loads of the enemy, and you can keep going, and then maybe the enemy, realising that he's surrounded by cavalry because you've caught him up and you've run round him, you take 1,000 prisoners. They just throw it down, like, okay, fair enough, and you get 1,000 prisoners. That's great, isn't it? But if you've got a net, which is a pretty big, awkward thing to have on your horse when it's not being used, but then you've got it there, for the route when there's the opportunity to capture a straggler, a prisoner. No. So you then get your net out. It's not going to be easy to cast a net from a moving horse, but let's imagine that you work out a way of doing it.
Now, you saw that in Planet of the Apes, like, when Charlton Heston was running away from the, ape army. They captured him in a net.
And you then cast accurately your net onto one of the stragglers, and he goes down, thump. Right, you're on a horse, he's on the ground. He's going to get out of that net. I mean, it's not sealed in it. It doesn't tie itself up in knots. It's only made out of ropes and so forth. He's probably got a knife or a sword or something sharp on him. He'll be able to cut his way out if he can't get out by some other means. You're going to have to get right on that guy really, really quickly. So you're probably going to have to dismount. Okay, in the middle of a battle. Okay, you've got to hold your horse with one hand and say, right, you're my prisoner. Stop it. Just stop struggling. And he's quite dangerous. He's a terrified man, and he's got weapons, and he'd much rather be somewhere else. And so he's a dangerous thing. He's going to take quite a bit of dealing with. In fact, you're probably going to need help. So you flag down a couple of your mates, and between 2 or 3 of you, you're able to capture this guy in a net. And so you and 2 other guys have now come to a halt, and what have you got? You've got 1 personal prisoner. But your officers, commanding the army, they'd much rather that you didn't stop 3 guys in order to capture 1 opposition guy. You want them chasing those routers en masse and downing loads of the stragglers and perhaps capturing the whole lot in one big go and keeping them routing. That's the job you're supposed to be doing, not stopping in 1s and 2s and getting bagging a few stragglers for yourselves. So equipping your cavalry with nets is not actually very helpful for the job of winning the battle and taking mass prisoners, and equipping your infantry probably isn't terribly effective either. So yes, in the arena, or on the arena, it's an entertaining match to see a Retiarius versus a Secutor or Myrmidon or whatever he's up against. But in a battle, no, not really. Although this hasn't stopped a number of...
And not to mention battles, there's earth-shattering decisions being made that, during those precious minutes in regards to making sure your king, lord, emperor, empress, queen, or general is pleased that the battle goes in your way. And the last thing you want to do is start throwing nets in the air. Like, whose idea was this?
Video games and other representations of the past showing units of gladiators actually equipped as gladiators in their showbiz costumes in the field. No, even Spartacus and his lot, when they were in revolt, generally didn't dress as gladiators. Perhaps right at the very start, if some of them had grabbed some of the gladiatorial kit, they might have been equipped that way. But it's not the most practical stuff in battle. And as soon as they had defeated a load of Roman legionaries, they nicked the Roman legionaries' kit and equipped themselves in military kit for actual battle. Gladiators in the arena, that's for entertainment. It's not really for battle.
Seems fair enough. I really like this channel. If you guys want us to check out more of his content, my answer is yes, definitely. Wanting to understand how to use medieval weaponry, mock battles. Seen a couple other videos here where he's explaining how to use different types of weapons. So you know what? 10 out of 10, great video. I would say, I'd like to learn more. So if there's any videos in particular you, our viewing audience, think that we should check out here on Americans Learn, go ahead. Now, a net gun can be a lot of fun. Using a net to go fishing is a lot of fun. Making some kind of net hammock is great. For warfare, I think it's safe to assume we here at Americans Learn agree with the presenter. It's a no bueno, as it should be.